strong, and I will never forget
is awesome.
how my heart sank, and I felt like I couldn't breathe when he whispered, "There's someone under your bed." Amy laughed, so I laughed too, thinking it was a prank, but it felt serious. My boyfriend's brother suggested that we get out of the house, so we did. As we were leaving, we heard a thud upstairs. We quickly left and drove away, and called the police. The police came and searched the house, but they didn't find anyone. He must have known we suspected he was there and left. My boyfriend couldn't give any description, only that he saw sneakers, but it was so dark he really couldn't see. But the scariest thing that still leaves me on edge is that the police, they found a knife under the bed. It was a small steak knife, but very dull and rusty. There weren't any killings in the area, so my friends assumed he just wanted a place to sleep. I'm not really sure how he got into our place, but I have some theories. I'm really proud of how my boyfriend handled everything. He's a calm, collected person, but I always assumed he wouldn't be that way in a crisis. I just hope I never see this person again, ever.
Number 3.
This started about a month ago on weekends. To help better explain the story, I'll explain my house. The house is actually rather large, 2-story house, or was. It was split into 3 separate apartments well before I ever moved in. There are 2 down on the first floor and 1 upstairs. The apartment next door is occupied by one of my best friends, and the upstairs apartment is very recently empty. I've lived here for 6 years with a roommate, our 3 cats, and my dog. Her and I have never had any issues prior to this, but very recently our dog started barking randomly at nothing during the night, or so we thought. He would look out the window very intently, then run to the front door barking the whole way. We actually thought he was just seeing a cat or a rabbit and brushed it off, just telling him to hush. One night, my friend or neighbor came knocking and said he thought he had seen someone out on his porch. He said he had grabbed a cane and tried to follow them, but they jumped over the porch and ran off. Since then, we made sure to check every time my dog seemingly barked at nothing during the night, and my neighbor had seen a figure suddenly bolt at least twice upon checking. We've called the cops, but they said that there wasn't much they could do. They asked if there was anyone we could think of who may be messing with us, and while there were some neighbors we had occasionally had to call the landlord on, there was no one we could think of. The issues we'd had never been more serious than them being a little loud at 3 a.m. on a drunken Friday night. So we continued to live our normal lives. My roommate works 3rd shift while I and my neighbor work 2nd shift, although he had just recently switched to this shift from 3rds himself. Nothing ever happened while I was home alone, and I figured it was over. Recently, however, I got a girlfriend, and due to scheduling, I will usually spend the night at her house in the middle of the week, as those are often when my days off occur. Meaning, at night, there is no one home except for my dog, as my roommate only has weekends off. Last week, I was at my girlfriend's and things were going well. We'd had a bit of a fight, so I was lying in bed, mulling things over in my head, unable to sleep. As I'm laying there, around 2 a.m, my phone buzzes. I check it and see a text from my roommate asking me to call her when I get the text. I figured she was on break at work and just bored, or wants to shoot the shit about Overwatch since it had just come out, and I hadn't got to play it yet, not having been home. I give her a call and she says she's at home and thinks somebody's been in the house. I ask what makes her think that, and she says that our friend or neighbor had gotten home late from his job around 1:30. He said he'd been home watching random stuff on YouTube, laughing rather loudly since he thought he was literally the only person in the house. He's had once before, so he scooped him up and went over to the apartment. The door that separates our apartment is normally unlocked since he comes over a lot, and put him down. He tells my roommate this, and she said she then told her boss, who told her to come home. My roommate came home and said she found our front door unlocked, which she never leaves unlocked, and the door to our sunroom was shut. We never shut that door since our cat's litter boxes are in there, and they wouldn't be able to get into them if we did. She's checking around and finds boxes moved out of our hall closet and a bunch of my card game and board game boxes scattered around. When they didn't hear our dog, they broke in. They must have been in the middle of looking through our stuff when they heard my neighbor laughing, panicked, and ran off. I'm not taking any of this lightly, and will be acquiring a gun since I'm often here alone at night. Crib. She would have conversations at strange hours of the night, but apparently this kind of behavior is pretty normal given the circumstances. It messed her up pretty bad, and later on she started telling everyone she was a medium type thing. She claimed she had a sixth sense and was sensitive to afterlife phenomena. The older the twins got, she started to calm down a bit with the strange behavior, but she still believed she had a gift. So, now that I've gotten that out of the way, I can tell you the creepy experience that happened to me when I was at their house during a boys' night. It was the twins' birthday, and the one I was friends with managed to convince his mum to invite a small handful of friends over. His mum made plans to go out that night with her new partner, which was great because we always got up to no good, and without supervision, this was the perfect opportunity to get up to some mischief. His mum finally left us alone. After an hour or so, we were running out of things to do. I don't know why, but I suggested we try a Ouija board. I've seen it in movies and thought it would be hilarious if we tried it out ourselves. All the boys agreed, and I got to work setting up the table outside. I cut out letters with a yes and no. I placed them in a circle on a plastic table and put one of his mum's shot glasses in the middle. I explained the rules to the guys, and we were all extremely excited to give it a go. The other twin was tired though. He said he was going to have a shower and call it an early night. He also didn't like the idea of us doing this sort of thing, but we continued to do so anyways, despite his concern. We decided that we would set up a tripod camera to overlook the table just in case anything supernatural were to happen. We turned it on and started to record. At this point, we were all sitting around the table. We placed our fingers on the shot glass and started firing questions into the circle. We were asking stupid, immature questions like, "Are you gay?" or "Can we speak to Elvis?" etc. Nothing seemed to happen, but we were all laughing and carrying on. Then the glass started to move, but we could tell straight away it was someone on the table. You could tell by the way the glass was moving. It was obvious and annoying because I really wanted it to work. We started to get restless and were on the verge of giving up on the whole thing because people were being stupid and no one was giving it a fair chance. But the next bit is where things get weird. The air became cold and the breeze, it died down. I remember that chilling feeling, shivering outside in the cold. My eyes started to water and I felt hypersensitive. I'm pretty sure the other guys felt it too. And that's when it happened. The glass started moving randomly. It felt completely different this time. It wasn't being pushed, if that makes sense. It was kind of dragging our fingers along the table. The movement was slow and eerie. At this point, we all looked up at each other, darting from face to face, trying to figure out who